Good morning, ladies. I'm just gonna wait for everyone to join that's gonna join. While I wait for people to join, I thought I would talk about a question that came in. Somebody asked if I could speak on the chemical effect of antidepressants. And of course, not asking for medical advice, more just wanting to know about antidepressants. Hey, Tanya. Hey girl, I was just answering your question. So I think it's important for us to understand that to have a different perspective of looking at depression. A lot of times there absolutely is just emotional triggers of depression, childhood trauma, things that just happen to us that we can't control. But a lot of times depression does have to do with physiology, and we have to admit that. The gut is related to depression, nutrient imbalances are related to depression, neurotransmitter imbalances are related to depression. But the idea that serotonin is the happy hormone has never been proven. In fact, there's so much research against it that serotonin is actually the blah hormone, the hormone that can make us feel more depressed or more numb. So first, what we believe about antidepressants actually we first have to believe we have to change what we believe, or not change, but look at what we believe about certain neurotransmitters and certain hormones. To determine if antidepressants are good for our physiology or not, we need to decide is excess serotonin or inhibiting reuptake of serotonin a really good idea in a lot of people. Serotonin has been linked to metabolic issues. It has been linked to things like autism in high amounts. Of course, we need balanced amounts of neurotransmitters, but most people don't have this chemical imbalance that they talk about. If you want to read more on antidepressants, I really, really like the book called A Mind of Your Own by Dr. Kelly Brogan. Don't necessarily agree on like all of her nutrition stuff and all of her supplement recommendations. Like, I'm not a big fan of serotonin precursors like 5-HTP or L-tryptophan. I think they can run into the same issues. However, I do think that her information on antidepressants is very, very helpful. I also recommend you Google Ray Peat serotonin. He talks about serotonin a lot, and he's a biologist that has been studying biology for a long time, and one of his main areas of research and study is serotonin and how it relates to us on a physiological, cellular, and hormonal level. So it's just it's very, very interesting. There's also another website that if you guys are interested in more studies and more research, you can go to Functional Performance Systems. I really like his website. And you go into the search bar and you can really search for a lot of different hormones, things like serotonin, antidepressants, things like that, and it'll bring up a lot of studies. So I highly recommend looking a little bit deeper. Obviously, that's a whole topic that we could just dive into. But serotonin is not as much of the happy hormone as it's being touted as. Let's just say that. Thoughts on tanning beds every once in a while for low time amounts. Not much sun here in Michigan, especially this time of year. Yeah, if I lived in a more dark place. I live in Southern California, but if I lived in the Northern Hemisphere, I would absolutely be frequenting a tanning bed probably 2 or 3 times a week, anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes. Very low level. I would make sure it's their lowest level tanning bed. But of course, that's something that you kind of have to decide for yourself, like weigh the pros and cons of UVB risk. There's so many people that are like, oh my God, I would never touch a tanning bed. And I'm like, honestly, there hasn't been one study that has linked tanning beds to cancer, and there's been so many studies that have actually linked DHA, or that active ingredient in fake tanners, to cancer. So it's just funny to me that like people opt for self-tanner over tanning beds, yet self-tanner has been like pretty much linked to cancer, whereas tanning beds actually have never been. It's just been kind of like this mass like hysteria about tanning beds. So of course you need to be careful with UVB rays. You never want to burn from a tanning bed or any type of UVB light, but I think a low level therapy, every so often can really help with like seasonal depressive disorder, people that struggle with kind of feeling down in the dumps or blues during the winter time, and also low vitamin D. You can also look into incandescent lights, or reptile lights, I like to call them, which are also UVB lights. You just have to be careful because they do get really, really hot. But yeah, you can actually buy like lights for reptiles, and they can help you create vitamin D as well. It's similar bulbs to what would be in a tanning bed. Is it normal to feel like you work from masculine energy when on period, but feel more feminine energy when you ovulate? Yeah, it totally can. It's more, well, you want to balance those, right? It's like very much like when progesterone is in the picture, you feel a lot more fertile, feminine, I guess like sexy in your own skin. Whereas estrogen and testosterone are going to make you feel a little bit more, I would say estrogen more than testosterone. I feel like a good amount of testosterone, not too much, can actually make you feel like a go-getter, but too much testosterone can absolutely make you feel like aggressive and just like a go mentality with like stress, you like adrenaline, and that can be estrogen as well. It can really like make you come from that more, I guess, masculine energy, or that just like adrenaline driven go, no rest type of mentality. And that can be common. I find that, and this is like more woo-woo, this is more observational, but I find that when you start to balance your hormones, you start to find a good balance. A lot of women who have lived a long time with super imbalanced hormones, or like low progesterone, for example, haven't really experienced that feeling of like being on that more feminine side. They haven't felt a good balance of their masculine and feminine. They've felt more just like aggressive, go, stress-based living, very much like career-driven and like life-driven, and not so much like nurturing and restful and ebbs and flows, which is the more feminine energy. And when you start to get balance to your hormones, you do start to flow between the two. You don't have too much of one or too much of another. Can't thank you enough for your guidance. Been working at this for a while and influenced by your knowledge, but find myself slipping into funks more often recently, feeling that there's more to it. Yeah, like when it comes to depression, a lot of times you want to look into serotonin. A lot of times people actually have too much already. Some other things you want to make sure you always have is magnesium in very, very high amounts. So like 5 times the body weight in milligrams is sometimes necessary. And then the B vitamins are so important. I cannot stress it enough. Most of the time, depression has a lot to do with depletion in certain B vitamins. I would say B1 is a huge contributor. Even B2, B3, B7. Taurine is another substance that is quite deficient in people who have depression. And so those are things that I always look into. Also, light is very important. When we start to get ourselves out of, it's really interesting, when we start to get ourselves out of like a metabolic distress, a lot of stress, we start to feel more down because we're not running on stress hormones any longer. And our issues sometimes become more pronounced. And this is not necessarily bad or good. It can really feel bad, but it does show us areas that we might need to work on that we didn't recently realize because we were running on cortisol and that adrenaline energy. And so now without that, it's kind of like, oh gosh, like who am I? What's my issues? Where are my imbalances? And sometimes people do feel worse short term before feeling better long term. Just bought Dandy Blend. Can you explain how to use and when? Also its benefits. Dandy Blend is just a dandelion root based drink. Dandelion is super detoxifying to the liver. It is a precursor to N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione. It just can help with liver detoxification. It helps with bile flow as well because it is slightly bitter. Just doesn't have the caffeine that coffee has. I just take a scoop, like a teaspoon. I just follow the directions on the bag. You just take a scoop, mix it into hot water, and add whatever you want to it, like you would coffee. Hi Jess, do you have any tips on reducing stress on the body after surgery? It just kind of depends on the surgery. Usually, if my client is getting surgery, we like to do some prep beforehand. So making sure there's enough vitamin K2 for clotting, making sure the liver is really clean because anesthesia is pretty rough on the liver. Just doing that type of stuff. But once surgery has been done, it's more just like focusing on as many healing foods as possible. So bone broth, gelatin, collagen, lots of protein, making sure you're getting adequate carbohydrates. If you need to drink most of them, that's fine. But yeah, just overall, just supporting the body. And then as you feel a little bit better, if you still feel the residual effects, like I've seen plenty of women have a hard time getting their cycle back after surgery, just because anesthesia has been shown to mess with ovulation for a couple of months. That is something that you just kind of have to pay attention to and see if your body goes back to its regular cycling, and if not, like supporting the liver, supporting detoxification, that type of thing. Thoughts on calcium deglucarate every day or only at certain times of the month? These like really powerful detox compounds like DIM and calcium deglucarate, you need to be very careful with them. It's very important that the whole body is supported before we start to try to push detox, because there are very specific things needed for detoxification to happen. Bioavailable protein, so animal protein, enough. So that's the first thing I make sure a woman has. And the second thing is enough carbohydrates. Is she eating 150 grams of carbs or more, which is usually what they need? And then saturated fats. Are we getting those three major components of detoxification first and foremost? Are we keeping the liver as clean as possible by eliminating toxic products, making sure we're getting as many of our food organic as we can afford, and doing things that are going to eliminate glyphosate in the body, like vitamin B12. I very rarely end up having to use those detoxing compounds because I think that they usually come with more risk than reward, and a lot of people rely on them when they're not actually doing the things that the foundational things that the body needs to detoxify properly. We like to pop DIM, we like to pop calcium deglucarate, but we don't like to actually eliminate toxins and focus on detoxification in the right ways, focus on bioflow, get digestion working, get the gut healthy, all of those things necessary, lower endotoxin from bacteria, eat our raw carrot salad every day. So I prefer for estrogen detox just eating a raw carrot salad every day, which is just a shredded carrot, coconut oil, white vinegar, and salt. That binds to estrogen, in my opinion, better than most of these like expensive supplements. But if you need extra support, that's when we would look at, I always look at protein, fat, carbohydrate intake, how frequent is it? Is your liver storing glycogen? Probably a lot of people that have struggled with like adrenal stress, HPA axis dysfunction, thyroid issues, can't store up glycogen in the liver, and so the liver stops detoxifying a couple hours after meals or really slows down. So there's a lot of caveats to detoxification, and unfortunately, even in the functional medicine world right now, they're missing the mark by a mile, and I don't really like throwing supplements at the issue when other things need to be addressed first. That's not to say that once all of those issues have been addressed, maybe calcium deglucarate is appropriate, but very often it's not. Also, tips on premature ovarian failure. I'm 30 and this shit is depressing and miserable. Normal thyroid labs, high DHEA, low estrogen. Yeah, in that regard, I would look at mineral deficiencies. That's the biggest thing. Is I've seen so many people with premature ovarian failure have completely functioning ovaries a year later after we've done some serious work. So it just depends. Keep in mind that the quality of the ovaries and the quality of the eggs is completely dependent upon the nutrients that the ovaries have. They have high need for nutrients. Keep in mind, you guys, these are eggs that are going to be fertilized and potentially become human beings. And so if we don't have the nutrients and the minerals and the vitamins that we need, if our body is under incredible amounts of stress, I see you have high DHEA, okay, that's going to drive so much stress. It can drive too much estrogen. It can drive too much testosterone. It can drive blood sugar imbalances, hypoglycemia. So when I have someone that has premature ovarian failure, I look at it all. I'm not just looking at like specific things. Have you already gotten a Dutch test to see how your body's detoxifying estrogen? I would always run a Dutch test. I would always do a hair tissue mineral analysis. We'd always look for heavy metals. A lot of times heavy metals are hidden, and things like iron and copper toxicity really challenge that ovarian tissue. It can also cause estrogen to be bound into all your tissues, including ovarian tissue, if you have poor estrogen detoxification or poor estrogen, because a lot of times women have low estrogen. Okay, that's fine, but sometimes that estrogen is bound in the tissue. So not all estrogen is made in the ovaries. It's also made by DHEA, is made in the adrenal glands back here. I'm pointing here, back here, and then DHEA can turn into estrogen, and then estrogen is also made in the tissues. So I'm always wondering, okay, what's going on with estrogen? Why is it low? Where's progesterone at? Where's testosterone at? Where's cortisol at? Where's adrenaline at? Where's magnesium at? Where's potassium at? Where's copper at? Where's zinc at? We're going down the line. So yeah, it can be a complicated issue, but it can also, there's a lot of things that are overlooked, and I hate that diagnosis gets slapped on people when there's so much more at play there. PCOS without a period for 2 years, high prolactin, LH, and estrogen, no weight gain. How can I treat this scenario? Already on a healthy diet and lifestyle. Well, what do you consider a healthy diet lifestyle? What types of fats are you getting into your diet? If they're polyunsaturated, tons of nuts, tons of seeds, tons of avocados, switch over to saturated. That's the first thing we do for hormones, right? Second thing we do for hormones is where we're getting our carbs from. Are we getting them mostly from grain starches, or are we getting them from roots and fruits? We need a lot of fructose for proper cell function. And then on top of it, where are we getting our protein from? Bioavailable protein, aka animal protein, eggs, high quality dairy, meats, broths, gelatin. So where are we getting our food from? Because I hear a lot of people say, I'm on a healthy diet and lifestyle. They're eating vegetarian, they're eating tons of beans and nuts and seeds and grains. Their body can't extract very much nutrients from those at all. Those foods have lots of anti-nutrients. They're eating tons of raw vegetables, very irritating, very hard to extract nutrients from again. So that's the first thing. I always do a comb over of nutrition because everyone has a different definition of a healthy diet. The second thing is where's sleep at? The third thing is, are you getting sunlight? Fourth thing is, how are you exercising? Are you over exercising? Are you doing CrossFit? Are you doing high intensity interval training too much every single day? Fifth thing, who are you surrounded with? What type of people? I also look at environment. Is there mold exposure? Is there Wi-Fi? Too much Wi-Fi and EMFs? Are you living next to a cell tower? Some type of really like radiation or EMF rich zone that can affect the body. And then we start to look at nutrient deficiencies. Where's magnesium at? Many people are depleted in magnesium. Where's vitamin K at? Where's vitamin D at? Where is potassium at? I can go on and on and on. So there are things that, because if you have high estrogen, you're not detoxifying well. And then high LH, the body's trying to communicate with the ovaries. High prolactin, that's another stress hormone. So there's stress in the body. Where's that stress stemming from? Estrogen, LH, prolactin, all stress hormones. So are you eating pretty frequently, every 2 to 3 hours? Is your blood sugar balanced? Are you eating protein, carb, and fat? Are you eating over 100 grams of protein? Are you getting your carbs from the right sources? Like I said, there's so many things that I could ask, and everything would be speculation at this point. But when I see high prolactin, high LH, high estrogen, I immediately think stress. There's stress, poor detoxification, and lots of stress. Is it really important to go to bed before 22 hours? Can you explain the benefits? I feel I can't do that. 11:30 or 12 is my time when I feel I can sleep, that I've done everything. That's just kind of a mindset shift, I feel like. I find that sleeping between the hours of 10 and 2 are very important for most women. They have a hard time ovulating if they're not doing that regularly. They see more irregular cycles, more insulin resistance. So you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why are you not going to bed till 11:30? Are the lights on super bright? Are you working until 10 o'clock? Are you on your screens? Are you on your computer, your phone, your iPad, whatever it might be? Are you working until 10 p.m.? You can't just like shut down work at 10 p.m. and then be like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed now. That doesn't work that way. So it's all about what you're doing, your habits you're doing leading up to bedtime. I shut things down at 8:30 because I know that I need an hour and a half to wind down and calm my mind down before I go to bed. I don't work until 10 p.m. and then expect my body to fall asleep at 10 p.m. And then I also acknowledge that if I go to bed earlier, I can wake up earlier and I can get to work earlier. So I'm not like worried that, oh God, I'm gonna miss out on the time. Like, you're not doing your best work at 10:30 p.m. anyways. So I think that's just kind of a mindset shift. I think it does take a really good amount of sleep hygiene. Blue blocking glasses are really helpful. Switching away from LED lights and using incandescent lights or red light bulbs is really important because it kind of winds the body down, helps you create more melatonin and just overall relax more. Then ask yourself, if that's not working, do you have adrenal, like a circadian rhythm imbalance? Are you super exhausted in the morning and super wired in the evening? If that's the case, then there's actually like a bigger issue at play, and your goal would be to change and flip that circadian rhythm. So get light in your eyes first thing when you wake up in the morning, and about at 9 p.m. at night or 8 p.m., put on those blue blocking glasses and start winding yourself down for the night. Turn off the lights, turn on like a salt lamp or something very dim, read a book, don't be on screens, and then see if you can actually get to bed at an earlier time. Hi, I've just been diagnosed with stage 1 uterine cancer after I did a hysteroscopy to deal with my prolonged bleeding issue. Doctors are talking progesterone synthetic therapy. Any suggestions? I'm sorry that you're going through that. I bet that's really, really scary, girl. If they're suggesting synthetic progesterone, why don't you suggest back bioidentical? Say, why can't we use bioidentical, something like permetrium? If synthetic is going to work, bioidentical is going to work a million times better. You know what I mean? So I would say if that's the goal, I would opt for a bioidentical if it was me personally. That would probably be the number one thing I would try to see if they would if they're already recommending progesterone, you know what I mean? And then I would focus on, this is like, I don't want this to ever be construed as medical advice, but you can do your own research on it and come to your own conclusions, and always talk to your doctor or your oncologist beforehand. But baking soda can be helpful. Aspirin has been shown to be pretty helpful, so look into that, look into the research on that. Things like niacinamide. So there are other options, but at that point I would also look at my Dutch test. I would want a Dutch test, and I would want to see how estrogen is detoxifying in the body, what pathways, what metabolites are you dealing with, wanting to see what's going on with estrogen. But if they're already recommending synthetic progesterone, I'd ask about bioidentical. Why not? I always find bites in my stool. Any thoughts? What do you mean by bites? Like pieces of undigested food? A worm came out today in my underwear. It was the size of my palm, orange type. I'm so confused and scared. Why did it come out? What should I do to go get rid of that? There will probably be many more in my stomach. Yeah, that's really scary. That does sound like parasites for sure. If you already have had that, I would go get tested for parasites. But it sounds like, yeah, you have some gut work to do. What does grass-fed actually mean? Grass-fed means the cow ate its native diet. Cows and ruminant animals are supposed to eat grass, you guys. They're not supposed to eat grains, because when they eat grains, they get horrible stomach aches and have to be given antibiotics to keep them from dying, because grains create these gases in their stomach that make them very, very sick. So cows are meant to eat grass. That's why they have 3 stomachs. This is why they chew their cud, choke it back up, put it back down, and that is what they're supposed to eat. That's what creates the best type of fatty acid profile in their meat and in their dairy. When they eat grains, even if they're quote-unquote organic, they still usually have health problems. That's like me saying well, I eat all organic processed food, probably just a step better than processed food, but still pretty bad for me. So at that point, grass-fed is very, very different. But you're looking for grass-fed and grass-finished usually, because you don't want them to finish the cows off with grain. The reason why they feed grain to cows in the first place is because it makes them grow faster and makes them grow fatter. It's not really good for their metabolisms, but that's what they want. They want these cows to grow fat quickly so that they can collect their meat more quickly. So grass-fed means that the cow ate grass. Jess, how can I know if I'm low in some minerals or vitamins? Is there any specific test? Also, for vitamin B, how to know which one I need? Is it enough to consume nutritional yeast every day? Usually it's enough to get nutritional yeast or brewer's yeast every day to get a good variety of B vitamins. It's actually really rich in B vitamins. However, don't use the fortified one. You want to use the one that doesn't have any fortification, just because it's better. It doesn't have a bunch of synthetic vitamins added. I prefer for mineral testing, hair tissue mineral analysis, because it kind of tells you a snapshot of the past 3 or 4 months in your body. It's a little more accurate than things like blood tests, because it's testing for intracellular minerals. And minerals work synergistically with vitamins, so a lot of times if you have low or high of certain minerals, those are going to either deplete or not other vitamins. Any DIY tips for mask for acne scars? Sugar. So things like honey, or even just white sugar mixed into some type of liquid is going to be a humectant, and it's going to draw nutrients and water to the skin. I really like anything that's going to have a sugar base, like maple syrup or raw honey, for scars. How to balance low blood sugar? Eat very frequently. Get carbs and protein every 2 to 3 hours. When you tell white vinegar for carrot salad, does it make a difference if it's apple cider vinegar? No, it can be either. I just prefer the taste of white vinegar. What dairy is the most easiest to digest and won't cause acne or irritation? Well, I know that you just said you had a worm come out, so at that point, that shows you have severe gut issues. Probably have bacterial imbalances alongside of parasites, because it's pretty common to have both. But yeah, that's something I would definitely check into, because dairy will disrupt bacterial balance if there's pre-existing gut issues already going on. So if dairy is causing you problems, I would look to the gut. What imbalance is occurring that's preventing you from digesting dairy properly? How often will you do coffee enemas? You just changed my life. I feel so much better eating dairy again. Thank you for what you share. I'm so glad. Like, sometimes I worry because some people are like, well, dairy gives me acne and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but dairy is not the culprit. It's more of like what's going on in the body that's the culprit. And the dairy just exacerbates the issue. But I'm so happy that you shared, because so many times women tell me that eating dairy again truly does make them feel so much better and their hormones work so much better. I do coffee enemas probably like once a week. There have been periods in my life when I was really, really sick that I would do them more often, but they can be depleting and they do flush your electrolytes out. So you do have to be careful if you're in a really fragile hormonal state, or you have adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction. You don't want to flush your minerals out, and you do want to replenish your electrolytes. So I think like a reasonable approach to them is pretty good, and doing them like no more than once a week is probably a good idea, and even like sometimes I'll do them like twice a month. Thank you for the encouragement with the postpartum stuff. Got an appointment scheduled for a blood test. Just to confirm, you said specifically test the thyroid, progesterone, and prolactin. Anything else to mention? I mean, you could totally do estradiol. If they'll test cortisol for you, a lot of times they don't want to do those things, so it's kind of like just take what you can get. But like estrogen or estradiol would be the test. I'm trying to think of what else. Vitamin D would be something you could test, just because if you're like feeling just kind of up and down postpartum, it could totally be a vitamin D thing. Vitamin B12, or not vitamin B6, but folate is something you can test, because especially like after a baby, that baby took a lot of folate from you. So just like things like that, but I'm trying to think of something else. Oh, iron would be something like iron, ferritin, like a full iron panel. But yeah, the basics, like hormonally, you've got them. Thoughts on ingesting bentonite clay and activated charcoal, benefits of either of them, or specific instructions on how to take them. I prefer zeolite clay, but the thing is with these clays is that they can start pulling heavy metals, and if you're not ready for that, you can really get really ill and sick. I prefer activated charcoal as a binder, taken in the evening. Just keep in mind that it binds to everything, so you want to take it away from all supplements, medication, and even food, or you're going to absorb the nutrients from your food. I think it's best taken like right before you go to bed, just so it can like bind to things while you're sleeping. Bentonite clay is pretty rich in aluminum, so when it hits the stomach, it can actually, your body can absorb the aluminum. A lot of times people will say, well, the aluminum in bentonite clay is not bioavailable, and it isn't until it hits your stomach acid, and then it can become bioavailable. So we want to be careful with bentonite clay. But zeolite clay tends to be my other favorite, but it should be implemented very specifically. I'm not a huge fan of just implementing clays willy-nilly, because that can actually do more harm than good when you start to pull metals that your body's not ready to detoxify yet. Hit a wall 3 weeks ago on FN, lost my appetite, broke out, and I'm retaining water. Estrogen not detoxing maybe. Any thoughts? Sorry, girls. So lost your appetite, broke out, and I'm retaining water. Estrogen not detoxing maybe. It could be that, or it could be like iron. It could be copper. It could be like heavy metals starting to move. So what I would do is I would do some type of binder in the evening and see if that helps. Like I just talked about, like activated charcoal. See if that helps you feel a little better. If that helps you feel better, then that shows you that's something that's coming out. I would go extra hard on the detox stuff. So like if you could do a coffee enema, if that's comfortable for you, castor oil packs pretty regularly, like I would go for like 2 or 3 a week. I would also maybe try to hit up the sauna or do detox baths. Like I would be starting to really open up as many detoxification pathways as possible, because it sounds like you've been doing really hard work. You've been implementing nutrients, you've been doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, and so now your body feels safe enough to start moving things. And this is what we a lot of times see when we start certain protocols or we start to increase metabolic rate. There's been so much junk stored up for so long that the body has just kind of kept it aside because it didn't feel safe enough to move it out. Now it's moving and it like feels like hell on earth. So I would really like look into a binder, activated charcoal in the evening, and if you can afford it, Pectosol C might be a good option for you as well. Take it in the morning, and if you need another one at noon. So Pectosol C, activated charcoal in the evening. I would lay heavy on the detox strategy, give it like a week or two, and tell me how you feel. And if you don't feel good, email me, okay? Because I want to give you some more tips, and maybe we'll even do an HTMA, okay? We'll work something out for that, because I don't want you feeling worse and there's something going on. Also, just wanted to say your EMF encouragement has been huge. Got rid of our baby monitor, thought we had gotten rid of everything already, and baby and I are sleeping so much better. Didn't realize how much monitors emitted. Yeah, it's so crazy because we think like, oh, the smarter, the better, you know, like smart home, smart baby monitors, like smart everything, and it ends up like really making us feel worse and baby feel worse. So I'm so happy to hear that. It really does make a huge difference. I'm like the least EMF person as possible. I'm like, oh, you wanna that baby monitor? No, like I'm not gonna do any of those like smart toys for my kids. Like we'll do all wooden. I'm gonna go back to the dark ages. I keep having these hot sweats and they can come on at any time. What do you think could be causing this? Do you think it could be my thyroid, as the doctor says he wants to check it out again? Yeah, I always recommend getting the thyroid tested when there's a weird like temperature imbalance, and that should include free T3 and reverse T3. That's a big one. And then like I always look to stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, and then I'm going to always look to estrogen and progesterone balance. If progesterone is low, you can absolutely start to get these like weird hot flashes. But if they're coming on at any time, and it really depends on your age, I would look at blood sugar balance as well. Is there evidence of hypoglycemia? Because if it's 2 or 3 hours after you eat and that's coming on, or 5 hours after you eat, then that could be a clue. So a lot of times when we start to see these patterns, we think there's absolutely no pattern. However, there's always usually a pattern. It's just figuring out what it is. So why is the body responding in this way? A lot of times a hot flash is usually a stress response. It's just, why is the stress response occurring? But yeah, I would definitely get my thyroid tested. Prometrium isn't available in India. I already asked if they could. Thank you, Jessica. That was super helpful. I'm sorry. I wish, I'm trying to think of I'm sure there's some type of bioidentical hormone available. It's gotta be available. I'm so sorry though that you're going through that. It really hurts my heart. What do you think of chia seeds? I notice they give me a stomach ache. I hate all seeds, unfortunately. I'm not a big seed fan, just because they're not really meant to be eaten by human beings unless we're like in a famine and we're starving. So not a fan of seeds. Chia seeds used to be grown into chia pets until people decided that they were a health food all of a sudden. So I think you could do without chia seeds for the rest of your life and be okay. What kind of water do you use for your coffee enemas? I live in California. I live in California too. I live in Southern California, and I personally have a reverse osmosis system on my house. So that is what I use. I use filtered water, but easily you could use like distilled or filtered water that you buy. I don't think there's going to be like a perfect option. I just think you shouldn't be putting tap water up your butte. Thanks for your response. I'll try tips for sleep. Also, just to tell so other girls can hear, I had also a little acne after I reintroduced dairy, and now after 3 months, it's all gone. Woohoo! I always say, like, does dairy really cause acne, or did you have acne without dairy? You know what I mean? Like, if we have acne without dairy, dairy doesn't cause acne. It just makes it a little bit worse at first, but sounds like you got your tolerance back, which just takes a little while, but I'm proud of you. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is going in and out. Since I started eating meat 3 months ago, I have heartburn. Is it because my stomach acid is very low? I'm taking HCl from encapsulation. Yes, probably because hydrochloric acid is low. Make sure that the hydrochloric acid you're taking has pepsin in it, and make sure it's a high enough dose. I like the dosages, like I like Integrative Therapeutics or Doctor's Best brand because I think it provides like 650 milligrams of hydrochloric acid. And there have been times in my life, like when I had super low stomach acid, that I have to take like 5 or 6 of those pills. So that's a lot of hydrochloric acid. Sometimes the dosages are way too low, and I find that just annoying because you have to take like so much hydrochloric acid, so many pills to get enough. Hey, I think I have SIBO, got some blood work done, nothing weird came out. I feel like anything I'm eating is bloating me. IDK what to eat anymore and how to heal my gut. There are so many advices. Yeah, keep it simple, okay? So don't like stress too much. It's just more about like, okay, what does my body need right now? It needs the least amount of fiber as possible, and you want to do gentle fibers. I really like with the raw carrot salad that I just suggested earlier, which is a grated carrot. This is courtesy of Ray Pete. The grated carrot, coconut oil or MCT oil, vinegar, white or apple cider or whatever you want, and then salt. Eating that twice a day on an empty stomach can really, really help. Well cooked mushrooms as well can really, really help. And those are like the fibers that I kind of stick to. All the other fibers for SIBO that I stick to are well cooked roots and squashes, and cooked fruits and very, very ripe fruits. Things like tropical fruits, stone fruits. Stay away from the fibrous fruits like berries. And then meats that are cooked in broths. We want to do lots and lots of gelatin when we have gut issues, whether they're parasites, SIBO, whatever it is. We need to get a lot of glycine to be able to detoxify glyphosate and to heal the mucosal lining. So keep it really simple, easy to digest. Stay away from like tons and tons of cruciferous vegetables and green vegetables, nuts and seeds, and everything else is free game. Just make sure that when you look at something, it's like, wow, my body's gonna have an easy time digesting this. It's not gonna be this big fibrous mass that has to go through my digestive tract. That's usually the biggest thing first, and then if that doesn't help, then we like move on to supplements. Haha, you just need a highlight tab that says I hate seeds. Yeah, I should. In your humble opinion, what supplements should we kind of always take for optimal health? Yeah, so a lot of people would recommend vitamin D, and I'm like harshly against that because it can calcify your whole body. There is usually a progression to a vitamin D deficiency, and it starts with high calcium, low magnesium, and then it goes on to like boron, and then it goes on to potassium, and all these things happen until eventually we're low in vitamin D. And so taking vitamin D is fighting against the body. The body made vitamin D low in the first place for a reason. So we want to make sure we kind of get to the bottom of that. But for optimal health, honestly, I think vitamin K2 is usually necessary if you're not being very careful to get it from your food, like just enough like vegetable broths, enough dairy, like raw dairy or high quality dairy, high quality animal foods, that type of thing. I'm trying to think of what else. Vitamin E, I think, should be taken. Like, I really think vitamin E is just too hard to get from the diet, and it should be taken. But there's not really a lot of supplements that I'm like, everyone needs to be taking them. Honestly, like vitamin E, vitamin K. That's all I can really think of right now. I'm trying to think of something else. No, I really can't. I mean, yeah, like B vitamins, we need to make sure we're getting enough, but that could be done through like brewer's yeast or nutritional yeast. I think iodine can be something that, depending on where you live in the world, you might need to add like a couple drops to your milk, just so that you're getting enough into your diet pretty regularly. But really, like, there's not a ton of supplements that I'm like, everybody needs to take these supplements, depending on someone's issues. If someone's struggling with like PCOS or hormone issues, this is gonna look a lot different for them. But for optimal health, there's not like one thing that I'm like, oh, you've got to take that for optimal health. Do you prefer pink Himalayan salt or sea salt? Which brands? I'm not a big fan of pink Himalayan salt because it has a lot of iron in it. Keep in mind that land salt draws a lot of heavy metals and organic compounds to it just because it's sat there for so long near dirt and soil. So I prefer sea salt just because it's more pure. And I use Malden's sea salt, but I think there's a brand called like Celtic sea salt. It's blue. That is also pretty good. vitamin E and vitamin K only supplement. Well, I mean, it depends on the issue. She wasn't asking for like a specific issue. She was just talking about like for optimal health. But if depending on what someone has or what someone's dealing with, that's going to change from person to person. One more question. I bought activated charcoal but don't really know when to use it and if I really need it. I don't like supplements in general and just wanted to know why it's recommended. It's only recommended if you have like really bad gut issues or you're detoxing or you're on like a gut killing protocol, and you have like digestive struggles or you have lots of endotoxins. It binds to bacterial toxins and helps you feel better. But I don't think it's like completely necessary. I just think it's something to have as a useful tool if you aren't feeling that great, if your digestive troubles are causing you to not feel that great, if you're on an active gut protocol, or if you're like going out to eat and you're eating something that you wouldn't normally eat and you want to bind to most things. Oh yeah, Cecilia, yes, magnesium. That's the thing that I forgot to mention. Magnesium is an absolute must supplement. Absolute must. We cannot get enough in our diet alone, period. We must supplement with it, whether that's through a pill, the magnesium bicarbonate recipe I have, or topically, transdermally. We need to be supplementing magnesium, absolutely. Okay, we got through all these questions. Wow. All right, I'll do a last call for questions. I'll kind of hang out a little longer. I know you guys, supplements are one of those things. I just want to like add a note on supplements is supplements are one of those things that are just that, supplements. And I know that you probably hear that and you probably know that, but so many times we don't treat them as such. We'll invest our money into supplements, we'll take so many supplements, and we won't really focus on our diet or our nutrition or our lifestyle as important as our supplements. And it's like, that doesn't really ever work. What recommended amount of calcium for breastfeeding women? I wouldn't like put a number on it, but I would probably be pretty careful to get enough. So just making sure I'm getting a good amount of dairy products. Like for me, when I'm like pregnant and breastfeeding, I'll probably drink like a quart of milk a day. Not gonna lie, just because the nutrients like the vitamins A, D, K, and also the calcium and the magnesium, you know, keep in mind guys, milk actually has a lot of magnesium in it when it's unprocessed. So it also has a good amount of iodine in it and other trace minerals. So, but for calcium, I wouldn't like slap a number on it, but I would say like it's probably a good idea to get a source of calcium daily as a breastfeeding woman. Start supplementing with calcium, magnesium, zinc. Any thoughts or concerns? You mentioned something the other day about too much zinc. Too much zinc can deplete copper and it can sometimes make you feel worse. So if for whatever reason you implemented that supplement and you started not feeling as good, that could be the culprit. But overall, it's usually okay. And it depends on the type of zinc. Like there are certain zincs that are going to give you intense stomach aches. Like the most painful stomach aches you've ever had. And I've learned that from experience. One time, it's really funny. Me and my dad are always like, we always like swap supplements, and he's super into health as well. And so I bought this zinc, or he bought a zinc supplement, and he was like, hey, like, you know, this is a great supplement, you should try it. And he didn't tell me that it gave him an intense stomach ache. He was like waiting for me to try it to see if it would give me a stomach ache. And I was like, I took it, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was dying. Like it felt like my stomach was literally like burning alive. And so I took like a huge dose of activated charcoal, but like I have been so afraid to supplement zinc ever since then. I know now that it was like zinc orotate, and that's not something that you want to take. But yeah, usually if you get too much zinc, you'll feel it. Good. Good. Then that was like a very, very intense good. Good. Then I can take if I go out to eat in restaurants after that. Yeah, I always take activated charcoal after I eat at a restaurant just because they a lot of times cook in nasty oils. So I'll usually take a vitamin E as well just to protect myself if they're cooking in polyunsaturated fats. And then they don't usually use organic foods, so there's usually lots of pesticides on those foods. So again, I'm not like overly obsessive about it, but I just don't really want to feel it the next day. Like if I want to go to Five Guys, I want to go to Five Guys and I want to enjoy it. I don't want to like have to like feel like crap for a whole 24 hours after I go to Five Guys, if that makes sense. Hi Jess, what's a good pick-me-up mid-afternoon? I'm so tired about 1:30 and my thyroid levels are fine, haha. At that point, like I would add in a workout in like mid-morning. But a good pick-me-up is going to be something like, I think like some type of movement. So it really depends on your day. For example, if I start to get like a mid-afternoon slump, I like kind of observe my day. Did I get enough sunlight? Did I take a walk in nature at all? Did I even get outside today? Did I exercise today? Did I eat enough this morning? If all those answers to those questions are yes, then I'll have a cup of coffee, just because it's like, I don't know at this point. Or I'll do some like B vitamins. Sometimes I will do a Red Bull. I know you guys are going to judge me so hardcore, but Red Bulls are just caffeine, sugar, B vitamins, and taurine, which you could totally stack yourself, right? Like you could do a cup of coffee that has some type of sugar in it, and then you could take B vitamins and you could take taurine. That could totally be a mid-afternoon pick-me-up as well. Helps with liver detoxification, helps with mental clarity. But sometimes I will, that happens maybe like once a month or so, I will reach for a Red Bull. But a lot of times it's just a cup of coffee and some B vitamins that I'll take. If I haven't already exercised, if I haven't already gotten outside and gone in the sunlight, if I haven't done those things, I will make myself go for like a 10-minute walk. I'll make myself go to the gym or do like 10 squats, 10 lunges, plank, something like that, just a quick 10-minute workout. Or you can also go for the more like dopamine, oxytocin, like you might need just a mental break. So go watch like funny YouTube videos for like 10 minutes or listen to a funny podcast, not something on health, not something that's gonna like make you super stressed out, something that's gonna be like fun and entertaining and like, just keep your mind off of things. So you kind of have to observe like what's leading up to the fatigue at 1:30. And that's kind of where your answer is going to lie. But sometimes it's just like, dude, I'm tired today, didn't sleep very good last night, and so I'm just gonna drink a cup of coffee, and that's just what it has to be. I want to make the B vitamin cookies. Can I use buckwheat instead of gluten-free flour? Yeah, I don't see why not. Sometimes buckwheat can like have a little bit of a bitter taste to it, but there's nothing wrong with that. Tell me how they turn out, because I would love to be able to say like, yeah, swapperoni those. Last question. You guys don't have to say last question. You guys can keep asking questions. I don't care how many questions you ask. There's no like limit. I'm not like, 10 questions, you're done. You mentioned with the postpartum weight loss struggle, I may not be detoxing metals well. Would clay be helpful in this case, or would it be helpful to get those blood tests first? It's really like detoxing metals is a little more complicated than just saying like, I need to go on a heavy metal detox, which is what is touted today. It's more, we first need to make sure we get our first level minerals balanced. So that's magnesium, potassium, calcium, and sodium. A lot of times we're depleted in those, and so our body's not detoxifying because it's just focusing on survival. That's going to keep us in fight or flight. And so it's first and foremost important to get those first level minerals balanced so that our body can feel safe enough to start moving metals. A lot of times I don't do any type of metal detoxing until the body's already naturally moving metals. We start to see heavy metals move out of the HTMA or out of the hair. We're starting to see levels of minerals move up, and so that shows like, okay, the body's actually started to move metals. At this point we can add in gentle support of metals, and at that point you would add something like zeolite clay or something like that. But I prefer Pectosol C or modified citrus pectin over bentonite clay for a gentle heavy metal detox. That would be my favorite supplement if you're just like, I want to do something about heavy metals, but I don't really want to do testing, I don't really want to do protocols, I just want to do something that's going to gently remove metals. It's not going to be perfect, but Pectosol C will bind to metals. And using vitamin E, unique E, is okay. Is it necessary? It's not necessary, but I don't understand why anyone wouldn't want to use vitamin E. It just provides so much benefit for the skin, the hair, the nails. Blocks estrogen, helps with free fatty acid production, slows down aging. For me, I think that vitamin E is super necessary, especially in our world that's just like we're exposed to so many polyunsaturated fats, whether they're coming into our diet or they're coming from our fat cells. But I don't think it's like 100% necessary. Like if you just don't like to take supplements, you could try to get it from your food. Swiss water decaf, okay? Yeah, decaf coffee's fine, but it's not going to give you that like pick me up maybe it will. I started Fully Nourished to confront this sudden onset of acne. My dermatologist wants to start me on a short course of antibiotics to get rid of the cystic acne. I think that's just something that like is a personal decision. There are people, like there's a lot of stories of people starting the antibiotic route and it just ends up, when you're on the antibiotics, of course it makes it better because bacteria drives acne and it's killing all the bacteria in your body. But then the minute that you go off the antibiotics, the bacteria comes back worse off than before because you most likely killed off bacteria that is preventing those bacteria from getting even worse. And so a lot of times you get on this tetracycline cycle where you're like going on antibiotics, acne gets better, and then it gets worse again, and so you got to go on antibiotics again. But I always say like sometimes it's worth a try if you're really like desperate and you want to try everything. I don't see a problem with it. It just depends on the type of antibiotic. Usually tetracycline is pretty safe if you're doing a short course. Do you think sticking with FN will help eventually, or does my body need that antibiotic to get over the hump? I wouldn't say it's like a antibiotic deficient. There's probably a deep imbalance that's causing acne. A lot of times it's iron toxicity or copper toxicity. The body's not detoxifying very well at all. The gut's super imbalanced. So acne is actually a kind of, I don't want to say complicated, but more like it takes some digging and balancing, especially in very hard cases. And like, of course, like I encourage you to try whatever you think is necessary. But if you try antibiotics and it makes it worse, at that point you might want to like look into actually digging into gut issues and digging into detoxification issues, which is probably at play. But there's nothing wrong with trying the antibiotic if if that's something that in your gut you feel like is right, no pun intended. I really like if you're having like really bad gut issues and you're or like gut symptoms like acne, eczema, that type of thing, really supporting liver detoxification is super important. But then also like even like a spore-based probiotic with a proper prebiotic, like Just Thrive probiotic plus their prebiotic for like a month, can make huge differences in the gut microbiome. What is a good source of energy? Something to help focus when caffeine is not an option. Caffeine kills my stomach and I crash hard after. Well, if it kills your stomach, are you drinking it on an empty stomach? That's my first question. You guys know we never drink coffee on an empty stomach. No. We always eat it after a nutrient-dense meal, and we never drink it black. It's always combined with a sugar, so coconut sugar, maple syrup, honey, or even a little organic cane sugar, and it's always combined with a fat. Heavy cream, half and half, coconut cream, some type of fat, ghee, coconut oil, whatever. So that's going to protect the stomach, but also if you're getting a crash, keep in mind that caffeine pushes that pedal down in your car that is your body, and if you're pushing on the gas and there's no gas in the tank, you're going to crash hard. So make sure you're understanding that caffeine is requires nutrients, and if you don't have enough nutrition or you're starving yourself all day and then you go to drink coffee, of course you're feeling awful because you just tried to speed up your metabolism with nothing to fuel your metabolism, if that makes sense. So caffeine should always come after a nutrient-dense breakfast or a nutrient-dense lunch, and it should always be combined with sugar and some type of fat. And then if that still kills you, you could do I'm trying to think of what else could pick you up. We could do like a dandelion latte, dandy blend, a splash of maple syrup, some collagen, a little bit of ghee or some MCT oil. We could do some, I'm trying to think of what else. We could do a greens powder. Sometimes the greens powder can be helpful, or there is this one called, what is it? Not Raw Reserve, it's the other one. Amazing Grass. Amazing Grass has an energizer one that doesn't have coffee caffeine. It has like a little bit of matcha in it and stuff like that, and you can kind of mix that into some water and get a little boost. But I find that a little bit of exercise, like 10 minutes of a 10-minute walk in the sunlight, a 10-minute little workout, some squats, some lunges, some jumping jacks, that kind of thing, really does invigorate the body. Or just standing up. If you work at a desk, just kind of standing for a little while. Or even if you find that standing up helps you, maybe invest in a standing desk or a standing converter desk. There are so many things that you can do to kind of like work on that mid-afternoon slump. But the biggest thing that is going to drive that slump is not eating enough throughout the day, not exercising regularly, being sedentary all day, and not getting out in the sun. I've been in an FN since the start, and overall I'm doing well. My dyshydrotic eczema is almost completely clear for the first time in 3 years. Woohoo! I love to hear that. My digestion is amazing, and I'm not getting any hardcore. I know that you. hardcore. I know that you said, yeah, the first part of your question did come through. My dyshydrotic eczema and bad headaches are gone. And then you said, like, my random scalp breakouts. Have you heard of that before? Detox, any suggestions? So yeah, more breakouts and random scalp breakouts can totally be like just detox in general. It could be things that are things are shifting. At that point, that's why I do mention in there like an activated charcoal in the evening can be helpful if you're having just like detox reactions, just to bind to things, or maybe like implementing, if your digestion is amazing, it sounds like you're pretty regular, that's not a worry. At that point, I would maybe add in a little bit more liver support. So pretty frequent castor oil packs can be helpful, like 2 or 3 times a week. I know they're a little bit of a thing, but they can be really, really helpful. Even doing like a weekly coffee enema, if that works for you, can be so life-changing. Making sure you're getting enough magnesium is very important. And then just kind of like adding in detox strategies like sauna or detox bath, making sure you're exercising and sweating, because it sounds like you're feeling pretty good. So at that point, like, let's start sweating stuff out of the skin. But some of this stuff is just like a waited out kind of game. Like, you kind of have to just like, as long as things are gently and gradually improving, that's what you want. But it can take a little time. And then if you're not doing the chlorophyll or detox lemonade, I would suggest doing that. I would do it almost daily, but I would do the milk thistle the last half of your cycle, so for 2 weeks on, and then for the first half of your cycle, don't do the milk thistle, so 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, that type of thing. But at this point, it sounds like it's time to start. Things are moving for you, so let's start adding in more detoxification strategies slowly. I read that magnesium and vitamin C shouldn't be taken at the same time, or maybe it was C and B vitamins. Trying to think, because C is an antioxidant, B vitamins. I know that vitamin C and iron are synergistic. I've never heard vitamin C and magnesium, and I've never heard vitamin C and B vitamins. But, I don't know everything, you guys, so that could not be the case, but I don't see why they would go against each other. I have some vitamin E oil. Is that something I can just put into a drink or something, or does it need to be taken in pill form? Nothing ever has to be taken in pill form, you guys. Honestly, if you could even put it on your skin if you wanted to, if you could put enough. Keep in mind that absorption through the skin usually requires 10 times the amount. So let's say like you were going to take 400 IUs orally, you would need to apply 4,000 IUs topically to get the same, like roughly the equivalent. But yeah, you could totally just put it into a drink. Just make sure it's pure. Don't make sure it doesn't have like any additives. But as long as it's pure, you can absolutely like squirt it into your throat. You could drink it, whatever you want to do. I don't know if I already missed my submitted question, but what is your opinion on AIP diets for Hashimoto's vitiligo? Did you mention that, or you have Hashimoto's? I may be remembering that wrong. Yeah, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in the past. I no longer have any antibodies. But I hate AIP diets because they always make people worse. Always. They're symptom suppressing diets, but they're very restrictive. And so what happens is they deplete you of nutrients, they wreck your metabolism, and your thyroid is what's responsible for autoimmune disease in the first place, and your gut. So if you have an autoimmune disease, gut issues, possibly heavy metal issues, and a slow metabolism, almost always. There's always stress involved as well, high cortisol, high adrenaline, or we've gone to the point where we're so stressed out that we're in the low area. So we've gone high and now we're low. So autoimmune diseases are pretty complicated, and restrictive diets almost always make them worse, unfortunately. For all the people that are saying that they're better, just make sure that if they're talking about like, oh God, I got exposed to cacao, or like I got exposed to eggs and now I have eczema again. Yeah, because now your body has no tolerance to any foods in the world. Restrictive diets make our food intolerances a million times worse. So we actually have to fix the issue, balance the gut bacteria, get rid of endotoxins, and get the metabolism working quickly, and really support detoxification. Jess, I'm so bummed with the hormonal breakouts and hair loss. I'm eating the ways you talk about and taking a bunch of supplements. Help, I'm over this. Are you supporting detoxification? Do you have heavy metals? Are you taking the right minerals? What type of supplements are you taking? Make sure you're not taking too many supplements that have too many additives that can be causing a problem. Where are your breakouts? Are they during your luteal phase? Do you need extra liver support during that time? Coffee enemas are amazing for that. Make sure you do your own research and understand that if they're right for you or not. But castor oil packs are also helpful. But yeah, I mean, this could be, at this point, it's like, make sure it's not a thyroid issue, make sure it's not a hormonal issue. And if you're hitting a wall, at that point, sometimes it's appropriate to start testing and seeing what's going on. If you're doing everything quote unquote right and you're not seeing progress, then there might be something hidden that's preventing progress. So you gotta have to decide, like, is investing in a test going to save me frustration and money in the long run? Okay, Kat, I see your question about what do you think about FODMAPs. I'm gonna go live again because Instagram's gonna cut me off, and I will answer that question, okay? So I'll see you in a second.